All right, so are you ready to get our hands dirty today? Let's dive into the world of street art.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm really excited about this deep dive today, especially because you found us some really cool sources to work from.
Yeah, definitely. When you say get our hands dirty, it really is more than just spray paint and murals when it comes to street art, although those are the classics, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're really looking at how artists use public spaces in really creative ways to make art that anyone can enjoy.
Yeah, I love how street art just pops up sometimes. Like you'll be walking down a totally normal street that you've walked down a million times before, and then bam, there's this amazing mural or some crazy sculpture just chilling there. It makes you stop and really look at your surroundings in a different way.
It's like the city becomes a gallery with no walls.
Totally. So what is it about those non-traditional art spaces that speaks to street artists?
Well, you know how galleries can sometimes feel kind of stuffy and exclusive, like you need to whisper and only look at the art from a distance?
Yeah, with the little velvet ropes and everything.
Exactly. But the street is for everybody. And I think that accessibility is a huge part of the appeal for both the artist and the people seeing the art.
Yeah, it's like art for the people, by the people.
Totally. And it's not just about pretty pictures, right? A lot of times there's a really powerful message behind the art.
That's so true. It's like a giant conversation starter right there on the side of a building.
Right. Street artists aren't afraid to tackle tough issues head on, whether it's politics, social justice, or even just making you question something you thought you knew.
Okay, so let's say someone is out there right now listening to us and thinking, hey, I want to be a street artist. Where do I sign up? What's step one? Do you need like a fancy art degree to even get started?
That's what I thought too. But it turns out you don't necessarily need a formal art degree to be a street artist.
Really? That's wild.
Yeah. Obviously, having natural talent and artistic skills
Wow.
helps, but a lot of it is about just going out there and experimenting and learning as you go. It's a very DIY kind of thing.
That's so cool, but you
Like,
can't just like grab a can of spray paint from your garage and call it a day, right?
right, there's definitely some skill involved.
What kind of skills are we talking about here?
Well, based on what we read, it seems like being good at different types of art is important, but it's also super important to learn specific techniques for street art.
Like what?
Well, like how to weatherproof your work so it doesn't get ruined in the rain.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
And thinking about what kinds of surfaces you're working with, because a brick wall is very different from like a metal sign.
Oh, yeah. And what about when some other artist comes along and tags your work? Isn't that like a thing?
Yeah, sadly, it's something street artists have to think about.
Yeah.
Their work is constantly exposed to the elements, and yeah, sometimes other artists.
Yeah.
That's actually another important skill, understanding urban environments.
Like knowing where you can and can't legally put your art.
Exactly. And knowing how the weather and other stuff in the city might affect your work.
Wow, it's like a crash course in art and city planning all rolled into one.
Exactly. It's a unique art form for sure.
So speaking of navigating challenges, one thing that really jumped out at me in the research was this platform called RoleCatcher. Have you heard of it? It's not like your typical job hunting site, right? What really blew my mind was how it takes apart those boring job descriptions and finds hidden skills, even for things that don't seem like skills at all. I was thinking, could this be a way for street artists to show off what they can do to a wider audience?
Totally. Think about it.
Right.
You've got an artist who's been creating these incredible pieces, murals, installations, you name it. They've got creativity coming out of their ears,
Yeah.
problem-solving skills from working in all sorts of crazy environments. Heck, they've probably even got project management experience if they've tackled any really big projects. RoleCatcher could help them package those skills and show them off to clients or collaborators who wouldn't even know where to look for that kind of unique talent.
Right. It's like building a bridge between the free-flowing world of street art and the more traditional job market. That's amazing. And speaking of reaching a wider audience, RoleCatcher also has this Get Discovered feature, right? How does that work?
Imagine it like a digital talent scout.
Hmm.
Let's say a company wants to jazz up their office with some cool art, or a local shop needs a mural for their wall. They could use Get Discovered to search specifically for artists with those skills.
Okay, cool.
It's like opening a door to a whole world of paid gigs for artists.
It's like instead of the artist trying to break into the gallery scene, the gallery's coming to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's switch gears for a sec and talk about the artistic journey itself. Our research laid out this really interesting path for street artists, from those just starting out to the ones who become huge names.
It's like they're leveling up their art.
Yeah. And they have these three levels: entry level, intermediate, and advanced. What I thought was really cool was that they gave examples of real artists at each level.
Having those real-life stories makes it so much easier to relate than just talking about it in theory. So take us back to the beginning. What makes an entry-level street artist? What are they all about?
Think of it like the finding your feet phase, you know? They're trying out different styles, practicing their skills, and figuring out what they want to say with their art. There was this one artist who said they were drawn to street art because it meant they could immediately share their work with the world, like they were becoming part of the visual conversation happening in the city.
Yeah, it's that raw energy that's so cool. They're not waiting for permission or for someone to tell them they're good enough. They're just doing their thing.
Exactly. And as artists get more experience and people start to recognize their work, they move into that intermediate stage. That's where we see them start to develop a more defined style.
What else changes for them? Do they approach their art differently at that level?
It becomes about more than just their own art. They start collaborating with other artists, getting more involved in the community, maybe even showing their work in galleries or those less traditional art spaces. It's interesting because there's this tension between keeping it real with their street art roots and stepping into the more formal art world.
It's like walking a tightrope between two worlds.
Totally. One of the artists we read about talked about using those exhibition opportunities to get the message behind their street art in front of more people. It's like they're using different platforms to make a bigger impact.
It's like a one-person PR campaign for their art and their message. Okay, so then we get to the advanced level. That's going to be where things get really interesting.
This is where artists stop just creating art and start shaping the whole scene.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. What does an advanced street artist even look like? What do they do?
These are the artists who are leading those huge projects, putting together exhibitions, mentoring up-and-coming artists. They're out there fighting for street art to be recognized as a real art form. Think Shepard Fairey, who started out with stickers and posters and ended up with his work in museums and even influencing elections.
Wow, talk about a glow up. They went from painting on the fringes to basically running the show. It's amazing that these aren't just hypothetical examples. These are real people who've made their own paths in the art world.
Absolutely. Their stories show just how powerful raw talent can be when you combine it with dedication and the guts to do your own thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Even as street art changes, it's still all about challenging the rules and rolling with whatever the environment throws at it.
So we've got this art form that's always changing, always pushing the limits. What does that mean for the future of street art? Where does it go from here?
It's wild how street art kind of reflects what's happening in the world, you know?
Mhm.
Like we're living in this digital explosion,
Yeah.
right? So it makes sense that technology is changing not just the art itself, but how it's made, how people see it, even how much it's worth. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. It's like that mural I saw the other day. It had this augmented reality thing going on. When you looked at it through your phone, the whole thing came alive with animation and music.
Whoa. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's artists blending the real world with the digital world. And we're seeing more and more of that, like projection mapping, interactive installations. The possibilities are endless, really.
Imagine walking down the street and buildings are like giant screens for light shows, sculptures that move when you walk by. That would be incredible.
Right. Or a mural that changes with the time of day, reacts to the weather, even stuff you post online. Who knows? Maybe someday the streets will be like a giant personalized art gallery.
And we can't forget about AI. What happens when you bring artificial intelligence into the mix? Could we see AI creating murals or even working with artists on those massive installations?
That's a great question. And it makes you wonder, what does creativity even mean when AI is involved? It's not about AI taking over for artists. It's more about finding totally new ways to make art.
This whole conversation has been mind-blowing. From those rebellious beginnings to these crazy possibilities for the future, it seems like street art is just as unpredictable and full of life as the city itself.
I think the coolest thing is how street art makes art accessible to everyone. You don't need to go to some fancy museum or gallery. It's right there in your face, making a statement.
And who knows, maybe it'll inspire someone walking by to pick up a brush, a spray can, or even just their phone and create something themselves. So, to everyone listening, keep your eyes open, stay curious, and remember that inspiration can be found in the most unexpected places.
You never know. The next masterpiece could be right around the corner waiting for you to discover it.
Perfectly said. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of street art. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep those creative sparks flying.